Yes, people, hello. I wanted to talk to you today about being a film extra in London. I did a lot of film extra work between around about 2015 to 2019. I was on shows like Call the Midwife, Mr. Selfridge, EastEnders, Holby City. I worked a couple of times as an extra on movies, but mostly I did TV shows. TV shows have shorter days usually, and it's a smaller production, and I think it's friendlier. I actually liked more working in TV shows than the movies. Some extras I met did some movies that had very long days. You had to be there about 5 in the morning until 10 p.m. at night, and then they had to do the traveling back and forth as well. They did not live near to the studio. So these days I'm making a living as a magician. Down, up, down. When I was ending my crazy career as a contortionist, another story, I started to do magic shows at birthday parties and other events. I had a few bookings, but not really enough to make a living. So I started to do film extra work in London, and there was lots of it. I was making nearly a full-time living doing that. I was doing a few shows at the weekend, and I wanted to tell you about how it works, how you can get into that world, what kind of pay is involved, how you're treated, the food, a few things like that. So the first film work I actually did was an acting part that I got. I hadn't done any acting in my life, and as a contortionist, I got a part in a Harry Potter movie. It was not a role as an extra, it was actually an acting role. I had a line in the film, kind of got cut out in the end, so I'm not really in the film. I spent 6 weeks on the set. It was great fun. I was with Daniel Radcliffe, Ray Fiennes. Then a few years later, I got chatting with a friend of mine who'd done some film extra work in London, and she told me there's a bunch of agents in London. I haven't done any for about 4 years, so check with the Googles if these agencies still exist or have changed their name or something. The best agency I worked with, I got regular work with them, was called Ray Knight. I'll put a link in the description below. It's quite hard to get on the books of Ray Knight. I don't exactly know their criteria for hiring people. A lot of it's based around your look. They're sometimes after particular ethnicities, particular ages, things like this. So sometimes if they need a lot of very tall Chinese people for a particular movie, you might get that role and then be on their books for other things and they consider you. Once you get with them though, I don't know about right now, it depends on what filming is going on, but there used to be a lot of work. Some people were doing 2 jobs, 4 jobs for them a week. Most film extras I knew would work for a couple, 3 or 4 different agencies. A couple I worked for were 2020, The Casting Collective. There were 1 or 2 other ones which were not so great to work for. Ray Knight was super. The way the jobs would work was you would get a text message, usually the day before, saying, are you free? Or sometimes they'd call you, are you free? It would be a day before, 2 or 3 days before, quite late notice. They wouldn't generally tell you where it's going to be. You needed to live in London or the outskirts of London. I think maybe these agencies wanted you to live in Greater London. Some people would lie and say they lived in London, but actually they live in Oxford or somewhere. But they would do these jobs, they would drive there, so the agency didn't really mind as long as they would get to the sets on time, etc. They would annoyingly send you to the other end of London. So I live in South London, right on the edge of South London. They would never send me to South London. Actually, rarely they would, maybe 20 minutes away, but usually it was on the other side of London. I think filming, they do this deliberately because if they're filming something, they don't want all these extras telling their mums and friends to come on down and see them because there'll be a load of people on the set. So I think I don't know if anyone in the industry can comment below, but I think they deliberately pick people who live far away from the sets. I would see that they'd be filming in Croydon or somewhere near to me, and I would never get those jobs. Regarding the pay, most of the agents take a fee once a year. I think it's about £50, £80, and they usually take that out of your first job. So what some of the naughty agencies do is they'll only give you 1 job per year. You'll get this job, you'll get paid maybe £100, and they will take out £60, £80. Huh? So you'll get very little money for that 1 job, and then you might not get another job for the whole year. It can be like that sometimes with some of these agencies. Not with Ray Knight, they were awesome, they gave me lots of work, but you can expect that with your first job. The average money I used to get in London was probably about £100 per day. Sometimes you do a longer day with overtime. If you engage with the actors, if you have a little line of dialogue, sometimes they will say to you, oh, can you say thank you, sir? And there's a little bit extra money for doing that. If you are right next to the main actors, you're considered a featured extra and you get extra money for that. By the way, don't quote me on any of this in case I'm getting any of this wrong. Always check on the day. Like I say, the world of extras, supporting artists can change, the contracts change. By the way, the word extra, bit contentious. I asked a woman on a set once, I said, oh, how long have you been an extra? And she said, I'm not an extra, I'm a supporting artist. Another thing that made me laugh was I met a couple of extras who actually had a business card they were giving out with Sarah Smith, supporting artist, on her business card. Some of them who've been doing it quite a few years, they have a bit of an ego about themselves as an experienced extra. I did it for a couple of years. I don't see much difference between me on the last day and me on the first day with supposedly experience. Mostly extra work is just walking past in the background and pretending to talk to someone. It isn't skilled. I'm sorry if I'm causing offence to any supporting artists. If any essays in the comments offended by me saying this, sorry, but go out and learn something skilled. Go and do some acting training. But I just don't see being an extra, being a supporting artist as a skilled thing. Some of them would look down their nose at people who'd not done it before, as though, oh, we're the experienced ones, but I never saw it in that way. You'd make between £90 to £150. Once I was paid £250 on a job, it was a long day, overtime, long overtime. Usually you don't know when you're going to finish. So if you're doing a day of extra work, don't plan anything in the evening. Don't arrange to meet your friend in the pub or something, because you never know with filming when it's going to finish. They don't seem to like you asking when the day is going to finish. Sometimes I would be asking on the set, oh, do you know what time we wrap? And it seemed almost a taboo to talk about when we're finishing. Mostly people didn't know. If it was filming that was going on day after day for weeks and weeks and weeks, they'd usually know when they're going to wrap. I found it quite a nice world to work in generally. Sometimes the costume people, some of these assistant producer people, they can talk to you a bit like you're kind of nobody, a bit like you're sort of rubbish, but didn't find people sort of rude. One time I had a very rude guy. I was on a set and I was standing around for hours, so bored, and I was standing next to some arranged things on a table, and I moved something a millimeter. I mean, I was fidgeting basically. I slightly moved this cup, and a guy with his eyes bulging out of his head came storming over and said, "What are you doing? This is a fixed set." He was mad. So you can encounter a bit of rudeness on these sets. Is it fun being an extra? Yeah, I made so many friends. Met lots of interesting people. I would say about 30% of the people who do it are really interesting. They've got other interesting jobs. They're musicians, they're artists, they're photographers, some of them are quiet and don't really speak. Some a bit on the odd side. That's rich coming from you, Ritchie. I think it's a good job if you're chatty, if you like hanging around with people, chatting, making new friends, which is great for me. I love the sets where I could have a chat between filming. Some sets, they get very strict and tell you not to talk or be quiet. But a lot of the time you're hanging around with a bunch of people, there's 20 of you in a pub pretending to talk, and then when you're not filming, you can have a little chat. You keep the noise down a lot of the time. Sometimes they'll put you off in some corner on your own for the day, and that's grim. The bad sides of it, I think you often get cold, because in the UK we're often filming through the year. You're often in some drafty warehouse or somewhere. So invest in a big warm coat. Take with you lots of warm clothes like coats, gloves, scarves. Always wear thermal underwear. Well, wear thermal underwear unless it's summer. They don't really look after you in that sense of giving you thermal underwear to wear or anything like that, so look out for yourself. Have a big coat on for if you're getting super cold that you might be able to put on between takes, and really look after yourself. Take that onto set with you, because sometimes they don't really care about you and they'll let you just get cold. Most of the time on the sets, they have coffee and tea, not the best coffee. If you like good coffee, bring a flask. They have really good food. You normally get a really good meal. You often get excellent breakfast when you arrive. It's really good food, but don't rely on the food being there. So if you're on set 7 in the morning, do take something with you just in case there isn't breakfast. I do recommend take lots of food with you. You don't need to drive, but I think if you don't drive, you'll get less work. They like people with kind of normal haircuts. Women with coloured hair don't get as much work. They like women with natural hair, particularly there's a lot of period dramas. I did a lot of things on shows like Mr. Selfridge, Call the Midwife, and they always had women with natural hair. Men, you sometimes need to get a haircut. They'll pay you for a haircut. I think they pay you £20 or something if they cut your hair. They often give you a really bad haircut that's kind of like 1950s or something. I hated my haircuts that I had on those sets, but if you're not willing to get your hair cut, some of these agents won't use you. And if you say no to one thing, they might not use you and then not use you for other things as well. So the more you say yes, the more they like you with these agents. And they have a lot of people on their books. So anything that annoys them a bit, they'll cross you off. You could be getting regular work with these agents and then for some reason you'll just be off their books. So I recommend as much as possible say yes, be as cooperative as possible, be easy to work with. If they call you about a job, oh, I don't know if I can do that, be clear with them, yes or no, you can do things. It's not a full-time job being an extra, and don't get into it thinking this will be my new job, I will make a full-time living. Some of them do make a full-time living and you can make a full-time living doing it, but most people do it who have other work as well that can fit around it. If you work from home, like you've got a small business that you run on the computer, something like that, and you can just suddenly take tomorrow off or do some of your business while you're on the set on your phone, do your emails, that's perfect. Sometime when you're on a job, you can use your phone between takes, you can do your emails, etc. Some of the jobs, they'll be very strict about it. If you get on a movie like Star Wars or something, they will take away your phone for the day. You have to put your phone in a locker or something, so you won't have access to your phone for the whole day. Do take a book with you if possible, if you're a reader, because there's lots of time when you'll be just on set for long periods of time. Sometimes you're wearing a big jacket, you can easily put a book in the pocket. Some smaller outfits, you've nowhere to put a book. I knew some extras, they'd rip a section out of a book, like 20 pages, so they could stuff it somewhere in their costumes. They could take a book on something, so they could take something to read on set with them. Did a lot of time on a comedy show with David Walliams and Catherine Tate, which not many people saw because the ratings were very bad for it. Bye-bye.